Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well here today. I know some of my takes on Paul Thorpe in particular have kind of turned a few people off, while some people have kind of rallied under it. And I want this to be perfectly clear. I don't want to be picking a fight with our own people, because at the end of the day, we know who our real enemy is. And it's Keir the traitor Starmer and the lefties. So when I have to do these kinds of videos about Paul Thorpe or Richard Inman or whoever, I don't take any pleasure in that shit. I'd rather be saying what a good job they're doing. I'd rather be saying these guys are a magnificent benefit to the cause. But one thing I have not been afraid to do is call people out when I feel it's necessary. And that is regardless of what side they're on. And the reason I primarily made that video about Paul Thorpe is the simple fact that obviously he went off to Spain and all that, which I frankly don't agree with. If you're a real patriot, surely you'd stick home with the troops. Surely you'd help them out in their defence. But that alone is a bit sketchy. What I had a problem with more than anything, as I said before, was the fact he made that blanket statement of fake patriots and all that. And that was whilst he was in Spain. Now for me, the way I look at it, obviously I have a problem with fake patriots as well. And I'm hoping that he's referring to the ones that pretend to be on our side, but then when the going gets tough, they want to get going. Or the people that lie through their teeth when they say they're patriotic, when they have about as much English stroke number one, as much English blood in them as the bloody Irish. I think it's just Irish blood over there last time I checked. And I actually meant to say Italian. Sorry, poor choice of words. As much English blood as the Italians. But that's what happens when you have a stressful day at work, when everything seems to go wrong. But the way I look at it is, think of it in this context. As a big guy, I know, big, larger than an African safari, and that's probably being generous, I wouldn't exactly go out of my way to slag off fat people that much, considering I'm also in that category. As the old saying, stroke number two, as the old saying goes, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I am off to a good start, aren't I? That's a stroke a minute. I feel like I'm descending back into my January days. But as far as I see it, if I'm sitting out in another country, I am not going to slag people off for being fake patriots. Especially considering Paul Thorpe never gave us any context to it. I'm not claiming to be better than Paul Thorpe, but what I will say is, I'd like to think I provide some context whenever I say stuff, because it's important to understand it in order to be able to make a rational decision. And I think Paul Thorpe would have done a better job trying to be a little more constructive here. I think Paul would have been better off if he actually described the people he's on about, rather than just issue it like a blanket statement. If he said, for example, all the fake patriots that pretend to be patriotic but aren't really in it for the cause, like, it would be a bit more understanding. It would be something that I could actually get behind and forgive for, because obviously we don't want people who pretend to be one thing and then it turns out they're actually the polar opposite. But the main reason I'm making this video is the fact that tonight there is going to be an interview between someone who is also a bit critical of Paul Thorpe, who is challenging his thoughts and his politics and what have you, Danny Roscoe, which his interview apparently is going to be at 9 o'clock tonight. So I shall probably be tuning in for that, and I'll be very curious to see how Paul Thorpe reacts to all the questions that are going to get asked of him. And if he's doing it live, hell, I might come into the chat and have my say as well. Who said, Matt, you crashed the server? Shut up, you. I'm not that heavy. But we'll see what happens as far as that interview is concerned. Now, there was something else that I actually wanted to talk about as well, on top of all that. Not just Paul Thorpe, because I don't want to focus it on him. And people will start assuming, oh, I'm using his video for clout. I don't need to use his his name for clout, quite frankly. I just wanted to put the name in there so that people knew who I was talking about. I'm more than capable of actually coming up with my own names, and I don't need to piggyback off of other YouTubers to do so. Hell, the biggest fucking video I've got on my channel right now wasn't using anybody's names. It was saying that there were so many people leaving the police, and do you know how many views that got? That got like 78,000 views. So if anything, I'm probably better off making my own content rather than actually piggybacking off of YouTubers, but you already know that. Now, what I want to talk about is the migration issue again, because I've been looking up some statistics as far as this is concerned, and the last time I checked, as far as the number of people that have been coming over to the country, turns out there's already been, like, from what I've understood, like 35,000 or so migrants that have crossed over from the Channel, give or take a couple of thousand. And it turns out the top 7 nationalities of these people, I actually found out that at number 7, we got the Iraqi people, with just under 2,100 coming through, 2,092 to be precise. In 6th place, migrants are primarily coming over from Sudan, with 2,697 of them coming over. Then in number 5, and I botched the writing because I actually got the two mixed up, but Eritrea was 3,385, and then the next one, which I put down as 5th, is Vietnam, with just shy of 3,600 at 3,595 migrants. Then we have Iran at number 3 with 4,137 migrants. Then we've got Syria as number 2, understandably, with 4,623 of them. And then in first place, Afghanistan with 5,919 people. And other nationalities counting as 8,929 of the migrants. So you can clearly see a lot of these people are actually coming from primarily third world shitholes. Though I believe in 2023 or 2024, I believe a lot of the people started coming over from India as well. Again, another Southeast Asia or Middle Eastern country. And it brings us back to that famous saying that people sometimes put out there, and that is, if you import the third world, then you're going to basically end up with a country that also resembles the third world. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. But what I find particularly bone-chilling is, I think it was in 2015, I believe there was a Labour MP named Rachel something or other. Can't remember her surname, but it was definitely Rachel. I believe Reasoned talked about this, and if I can find the video, I will link it in the description below. But she actively went out of their way to say, we need to impoverish ourselves to allow these invaders to basically live here in comfort. No! We don't need to give them a fucking hand. What we need to do is grab them by the hand, or the shoulder, or the neck, or wherever, take them to the nearest boat or plane, and remove them from the country. Because the thing is, nobody was ever asked, do they want mass numbers of illegal immigrants, or uncontrolled immigration, loads of foreign invaders coming over to this country? If they were asked that point blank, they would have shut that shit down, just like that. But of course we weren't asked that. So of course they just flooded our country with loads of foreign invaders. There ain't any way in God's earth we would have allowed this if we were asked the question, or if we had a referendum, much like the Brexit referendum, by coincidence. You remember that, right? When David the Conman Cameron was not interested in having a referendum. If he had his way, we would still be shackled to the EU, although to be fair, we still are. It's just that we're no longer associated, we're no longer technically in the EU, we're just shackled in name. But I guarantee you, if the English people were asked, do you want mass uncontrolled immigration in this country, and you put it to the vote, I guarantee you the vast majority of them would say no. The only people who would say yes are the global Marxist shills. But that's the thing, these people, a lot of them, I'd like to think, thought I did some damage to the door, the window then. Anyway, I think the vast majority of people would have the common sense to realise that mass uncontrolled immigration is going to be a serious detriment to this country. And what you have to remember is there are a whole load of arguments you can make that categorically say that mass uncontrolled immigration is going to be bad for the country. Not just the economic issues, not just the issues as far as the crime is concerned, but you're also going to be talking about infrastructure as well. As people in the UK, yes, I do accept, devil's advocate, that a lot of the UK has this lazy mentality. A lot of them would rather spend their time on the dole. And another bit is stroke number 3, another bit of devil's advocacy is that people tend to get paid more on the dole than they would a minimum wage job. So can you really blame them too much for that when they basically incentivize being reliant on the government? I mean, that's the way I look at it, at least. But the truth is, the more that we import the third world and the more that we import migrants in to cover the jobs the people in the United Kingdom should, the more reliant we will become on those migrants to be able to get anything done, as we won't have the skills because we haven't been trained up in them because people are just too fucking lazy. What we need to do is we need to encourage English people to get out there and go and do a job. We need to provide some kind of incentive, whether it's an extra 2k a year, whether it's you give them a couple of £100 per month that they can stay in a successful job. Like, I don't know what it is. I can't give you a perfect answer in good faith, but what I can say is that if you incentivize the English people, I'm pretty sure a lot more people will get off their backsides and actually go and do a job. I mean, I had to go out of my way, and I started out as a bloody cleaner before I ended up joining the now named and shamed JLL, who, obviously, I've mentioned it before, that they discriminated against me and all that shit. But I don't want to discuss them too much because that's not what the video is about. The point I'm trying to make is I had to work my way up. I had to go out of my way to earn my living, to earn my keep. It even has a portcullis and everything. Anyway, I had to earn my keep, because otherwise, what good am I? I'm basically a massive fucking, like one of those weights with the little ring in it, you put like a hook in there. That's basically what I am. I'm dead weight if I don't start working. I didn't get to where I am right now, where I'm actually have been working in this job for 15, 16 months, something like that. I didn't get to that stage by basically having this mentality of, oh, I'm not going to bother working, oh, fuck that, I'm too good for that. No, I got out there and I had to swallow that cold bitter pill, and that is the cold bitter truth, and accept that I have to earn my keep in the United Kingdom. I have to contribute to society. I have to put in taxes. I have to do something rather than expect everyone else to pay for me. I have been in and out of work over the last, I'd basically say 11 years, maybe 12. But I have basically been in and out of work, realizing I have to be able to earn a living if I want to be able to have nice things. And what we need to do, as said, any means necessary, we need to get our lazy culture out of this mentality of stay at home and do nothing, and actually get them learning stuff, whether it's learning about computers, whether it's learning about construction, whether it's learning how to stack shelves, whether it's learning how to look after animals. We need more and more people. Fucking hell, that sun is obnoxious. Anyway, we need more people who are actually able to go out and do a job, work for their country, and actually contribute. Because if we don't, we will end up dependent on migrants, even when some of these migrants are of as much use as a chocolate kettle. Because the way I look at it, how are we supposed to develop the skills we need if we can't even be bothered to get off our asses? I mean, right now, we're having trouble fighting our own bloody flab, let alone the fucking enemy. Though at this point I don't bloody need to, just get the sun to melt it all off. Anyway, the fact is, we must start encouraging younger people, young adults, even those adults that have taken up this mentality. We need to encourage them to get out there and contribute. And we need to punish slackers, punish laziness, punish complacency, punish parasitical nature. Because here's the thing, as much as I may lay on the migrants, The one thing I will say to their credit is they don't give a shit if it is just being a cleaner or whether it's being a delivery driver or what have you. Those people will work because they know full well what they get here in the United Kingdom is worth way more than what they would get back home. I've already mentioned the Romanians back in the 2010s. They were basically getting, over here, they were getting like 9 times their salary back at home. So you can understand why the Romanians were actually coming over here. Another thing we need to do is we need to make sure that anybody that comes over here illegally, no mess, no nonsense, no fuss. If they come in illegally, put them on the next plane, boat, catapult, or even strap a fucking jetpack on if you have to. But get them on the next transport and send them straight back. No nonsense, no fuss. They need to be removed from the country as they have not entered legally. Unfortunately, Keir the traitor Starmer won't do that because he hasn't got any bloody spine. We need a leader who's got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually make the hard choices and start taking out the trash. But in order to do that, we need a leader that has decency, integrity, and perish the thought tells the fucking truth. Because a lot of people right now, they may be looking at reform, they may be looking at them and thinking, if we vote anyone else, it's a vote for Labour, and this is despite the fact that Lee Anderson went out of his way to say a vote for reform is a vote for Labour. But they will keep on being fatalistic and pessimistic and saying, if we vote any other party other than reform, then we will just put another vote for Labour. And that is complete nonsense. It is only another vote for Labour if nobody has the guts to actually join the group, join the bandwagon as it were, and get on with UKIP. Because here's the thing, when has Nick Tenconi lied about his policies? When has Nick Tenconi flip-flopped like Gandhi's sandals on these policies? He hasn't. Every single mission that he's made, every single policy that he's been making, he has done because he fundamentally believes in it. And if you fundamentally believe in something, you don't need to change for anyone. If anybody tries to say, oh, you're too hard, you're too harsh, and oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do that, and oh, you're being racist, etc., etc., and you bow to them, you show that you're easily manipulated. Nick Tenconi is not one of those people. Christian values, end wokery, deport the people on the MI5 watch list, just to name 3 of the missions. He has stood by every single policy, though, that he's made. He's the only man that I've seen who actually stands by what he says, unlike Nigel El-Faraji, who will change his principles at a whim. And I know some people have been going on about Advance UK and Restore Britain. I do accept that, and I do accept that Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib are admirable people, very admirable people. However, I cannot, in good faith, defect from UKIP. I've just gotten my damn membership like a few weeks ago. I'm just waiting a bit so that I can accrue some funds, and then I can start actually doing something for Norwich. I mean, what would I be? Think about this. What would I be if I had just gotten my membership, which I have, but what if I just joined UKIP and then I decided a month down the line, fuck it, I'm joining Advance UK, or I'm joining Restore Britain, or perish the thought, I'm joining Reform. Not going to happen, to be fair, but I'm just putting it out there as an example. What would that do? That would immediately put out the message that I'm not loyal, number one. And number two is that it would prove that I would basically not be a man of my word. I know people will say, but I think Rupert Lowe and all that are doing really, really well. Good on them. Honestly, good on them, quite frankly. But I cannot change my position on this. Thank you. Like, if I hadn't already joined a party, if I hadn't actually put in my membership, I'd be over to Rupert Lowe, just like that. But the trouble is, I can't do that while I've got a UKIP membership. But bringing this back to the migrant issue again, bearing in mind all those statistics that I've given you earlier in the video, bear in mind, as I've said before, that the Eritreans were 20 times more likely to commit acts of an sexual nature versus English nationals. I mean, hell, there's actually been a story out here in Norwich, in one of these parks, where there was a 17-year-old girl, I believe, who was clearly a minor, thank you, Woodland, who was clearly a minor, that was approached by one of these migrants from the hotels, I can only assume, who basically tried to solicit this girl. And understandably, that would make any girl uncomfortable, let alone a minor, so understandably she felt the need to go and speak to some big burly men and have them take out the trash, as it were. And boy oh boy did those migrants run for the fucking hills when they start coming, because that's the thing, a lot of these invaders, they love to prey on the weak and the vulnerable, and they like to prey on the fairer sex, but the moment it comes down to fighting a hardened man, or a man who has got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to fight these fuckers, they run a mile. They run a country mile. They could literally run faster than Usain Bolt, I swear to God. And I've mentioned this before. Most of the countries over in the Middle East are run under the religion of Islam. And we know how they like to operate. They like to operate in packs with a hive mind. They like to prey on people that are vulnerable, or will only go after a hardened man if there's 10 of them around, because they're all a bunch of fucking cowards, bluntly speaking. Like I said, if it was 10 mullahs against 10 hardy English men, the English men would take out the trash, just like that. And some of them wouldn't even give a fuck about their weapons either. I'd ask the establishment to do something, but we all know Keir the traitor Starmer ain't going to do fuck all about the foreign invaders, since he's protecting the Muslim community. Another thing I'll be clear on is I'd have no problem with people coming over here in reasonable numbers if they were all here willing to contribute to society, willing to pay in taxes, ready to respect our cultures, ready to respect our society. Unfortunately, a lot of them are very intolerant of us. They have about as much love as a vengeful spirit. That's the truth on the matter. If these people were willing to integrate, I don't think you would find one English person who would have a problem with them. But the problem is, as said, most of them aren't tolerant of us. Most of them don't respect our laws. Most of them don't respect our society. Hell, back in, I believe it was 2022, a lot of the migrants that were coming over here were actually Albanians. And a lot of the Albanians, what were they doing? They were dealing with the drug trade. They were getting high on the stuff, high as a kite, as well as trading it around to other people. So, can you understand people's frustration when we're allowing more of the same into the country? And allowing people from the Middle East who claim to be fleeing war, yet last time I checked in Syria, I thought that they had deposed the dictator and basically Islam overthrew the government and took over. And last time I checked, I don't think Eritrea was suffering from any wars either. And I've also made the point as well, if these people really wanted asylum, if they really wanted safety, they would have claimed it in the first safe country they got to. And they would have been on their knees praising the Lord for any bit of bread or water or any bit of comfort that they could get that isn't in a third world shithole. But a lot of these people are thankless bastards. A lot of these people, they don't want to sit in Germany or Italy or Greece or France or Austria or wherever, even though those countries could very comfortably be said to be reasonably safe countries. No, the reason they're not going to those countries is because they know the law's a bit more robust over there, and they know full well that England is not an iron glove country. It is a silk glove country. Very soft touch, very lenient, very tolerant towards an intolerant group of wankers. It shows more interest in protecting the invaders than it does protecting its own people. They have more interest in providing bed and breakfast for foreign invaders and 4 square meals a day for the foreign invaders coming into our migrant hotels at our cost than they would housing some of our veterans, some of our heroes who fought in 2 world wars potentially and nearly died on the back of it. Like I said before, if the people in those 2 world wars could see what this country has become, I'm pretty sure they would have just said, fuck it, Germany, you can have this country, quite frankly. Because they would have realised that it would have been a waste of time and that people like Keir the traitor Starmer are basically spitting on the war dead. They are spitting on our war dead and taking the piss on them while doing a little Irish jig on them. That's basically what they're doing. All the while continuing to allow more people who wish to destroy our country into our country in the hopes that it will cause a civil war. And as I've always said, I don't want it to descend to civil war. The one thing I have said though is if it does happen, if civil war does come to this country, they won't be able to blame the far right, they won't be able to blame the Conservatives, they won't be able to blame Tommy Robinson, they won't be able to blame independent media sources. No, they'll only have themselves to blame, because they're the ones that instigated it. Tommy Robinson did not instigate the Southport riots. Keir the traitor Starmer did. Tommy Robinson isn't disrespecting our war dead. Keir the traitor Starmer is. Tommy Robinson isn't letting in thousands of foreign invaders. Keir the traitor Starmer is, and as well as, of course, the government from the Tories, who have also had plenty of chances to deal with this shit and have chosen not to. They always try to blame the people who are basically trying to stop the very thing that our treacherous oligarchy are already doing. And as I said, if we started looking after our own, rather than those coming in who seek to conquer this country, we could build up our economy again, we could build up our infrastructure, we could have more skilled workers, we could allow some of our hotels to be used by those veterans who fought in the wars for us, we'd have more houses that would be able to be allocated to them. That's just to name a few things. If we started taking out the trash, as it were. If we started dealing with this migrant issue, we'd save millions, if not billions, every single year. Because we wouldn't be paying for their hotels, we wouldn't be paying for them to sit in prison, we wouldn't be paying their medical bills, we wouldn't be paying to give them food, because they wouldn't be our problem. Now let me be clear. If we eventually get to the stage where we're able to support ourselves, if we are able to say, you know what, we've actually got a decent thing going for us here, and I think we've got a little bit of charity in us, a little bit of room where we can just about house a few hundred people, as an example. When you're able to help yourself and stand on your own 2 feet very, very comfortably, then and only then do you even consider helping other people. Because if you go helping your own people, helping other people when you're unable to stand, how do you think that's going to work? What happens if you basically cut off your own legs just so that you can give them to the invaders? They're able to come and stampede in the country, and you're stuck there helpless. But Keir the traitor Starmer doesn't give a shit about all that, because he is using the cover of the Russian war to prepare for civil war. Why else do you think he's increased the defence budget by up to 5%? I can tell you right now, it's not to invade Russia. Even though they're putting up conscription to say, we want you to conscript, or we are going to put conscription in so we can get the far right to go over to Russia. What, do they honestly expect us to go and fucking fight one of the most powerful forces in the world when he can't even be fucked to help his own people? The only thing I'd be giving Keir the traitor Starmer is 2 wet ink signatures with my middle fingers. I certainly wouldn't be giving him anything else. The way I see it, he's not my Prime Minister, and Charles is not my King. I may have mentioned it already before, but I have thought maybe that we should start tabooing the name Charles from the monarchy, considering we've only had 2 King Charles, and yet they've both been fucking monumental disasters, quite frankly. One went and funded wars, then he got beheaded for it. The Walking Dead. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, he ended up funding wars with our money, so we decided to take out the trash and take him out of history. And then we have King Charles II. As much use as a featherweight paperweight. No purpose. Just there to preach woke ideologues. And there's this one mullah who's been given an MBE, of all things. Honestly, it astounds me. It fucking astounds me. Keir the traitor Starmer and Sadiq Khan destroying our country single-handedly, they get knighthoods. Tommy Robinson brings the R gangs to the forefront. He gets imprisoned relentlessly. He brings together a fucking nation to oppose this treachery, this deceit, this dishonesty, the cover-up of the gangs. They try to break him in solitary confinement. Absolutely disgusting, isn't it? But the bottom line, as far as the other 2 subjects is concerned, is I do hope that Paul Thorpe is learning from his mistakes, because I don't want to be picking up a rifle, metaphorically speaking. I don't want to shoot Paul Thorpe, let me be fucking clear on that much. But I don't want to be, metaphorically speaking, firing shots at Paul Thorpe because he said some stupid shit again. I don't want to be speaking to him and saying, oh, this guy's a fucking cunt. Of course not. I'd rather focus my frustrations on the left, because they're the real enemy, not Paul. Whether Paul's a plonker or not, our efforts need to be focused on dealing with the real threat. And as far as the migrants, the foreign invaders, whatever you want to call them, something's got to give. As I said, I think in the next 3 to 9 months we're going to have civil war. Whether we want it or not, and I certainly don't want it. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to get nasty. Because we've already seen the thing in Ulster, the bonfire that had that migrant boat effigy in there. And isn't it funny how they're now trying to investigate that for a hate crime? Even though there are people in Palestine who were effectively doing far worse. And the fact that a lot of these people went out of their way. I think they made... I don't think it was the Palestinians, but I know there was a group of people who ended up dismantling one of our statues. There are many groups on the left who dismantle our statues. Have any of them been investigated for hate crimes? Probably not. But they're more than willing to do it when it's the far right. Well, if this 2-tier policing society want to continue persecuting its own people, they can't be surprised if their own people, if they really need help, if they really need people to come and assist them for a criminal, and speaking of which, I know someone said about, I can't seriously think the people in the Manchester airport attack as hardened people. No, I don't think they're hard people. I think they're fucking cowards. The hardened criminals, I'm saying in the context of not just your Tom, Dick and Harry who can go to fucking Harrods or whatever and then get a load of clothing and what have you and shoplift the store and then walk out with the bag. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are more than willing to wield knives. That's the wrong one. God damn it, I knew I shouldn't have messed around with it. Anyway, basically, I'm talking about the people who are not afraid to brandish knives, to brandish guns, who are not afraid to do armed robbery, who are unafraid of going after people and just viciously attacking them. That's what I'm talking about by hardened criminals. The people who are much more willing to do the nastiest shit. That's what I meant. But as far as the migrant issue is concerned, something will have to give. And if the police and the government won't do their job, then just like the Irish are starting to take matters into their own hands, here in England, the same will happen here. Keir the traitor Starmer would do very well to remember that what's happened in Ireland, that is actually now happening in Spain as well, as there was a load of protests going on, violent protests in Spain, which basically was dealing with this illegal immigrant issue. But he would do well to remember that that could easily come over to the United Kingdom. Already we are seeing what's happening when the third world is trying to take over our country from within. It's going to take a lot of strong men and women to do that. And I accept that I'm not exactly sitting there with an 8-pack with muscles bigger than Dwayne Rock Johnson, and I've got the accuracy of the American sniper. I'm not a soldier by any stretch of the imagination, and I've never claimed to be. So all those NPCs who came in the comments to say, well, you ain't doing shit, bud, I'd at least do my damnedest. What would you do? At least I've got the balls to talk about this stuff, whether up here or down there, or in my case, both. What are you trolls? What have you troglodytes got? Answer me that, if you've got the guts.